Talk Shoes. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 678. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me today, I have my regular co-host, Matt Lungeth. Today's Wednesday, February 2nd, 2024. Matt, good to see you. How are you doing today?
Well, we're time traveling again because I think it's not Wednesday, it's Friday.
It is Friday. It is Friday, but it is the 2nd. I got the date right. We're doing the special edition, Friday edition, because we got Brad here who did a crazy session this morning. We'll talk about that. But Matt, how you doing?
Eric, I'm well. Like many things that seems to be, in the midst of change, we're doing a podcast here on a Friday afternoon rather than our normal Wednesday schedule. So more of the state of change, if you will. And it's also been a hot minute since I've been able to join the podcast here. I think that it's the last recording I was able to participate was back in December. So glad to be here and part of the team and to check in with our friends over at VMUG. But before we get to all that, sir, my favorite questions that I haven't asked in so long. How are you? How are things out on the West Coast? And what is the color of the Bay?
I'm doing great. It is a season of change and we're going through a lot of it, but it's all been really good. It's been good. Everything that we're doing is stuff that I would have done a couple of years ago. So I'm really happy about all the changes happening. And Palo Alto is busy. Hawk is working in our building now. Everybody's on campus. Believe it or not, when you go on campus, it's hard to find parking. Like the front lots in front of Promontory are full. The lots in front of Hilltop are full. You got to drive all the way to the Hilltop parking garage and go up on the third floor to get some parking. So it is it's busy on campus and everybody's back in the office and working. So it's good. And then, the weather is California wintertime. We've had some storms come through. We're going to have another big storm this weekend. We had a storm 2 days ago. So the good news is the reservoirs are filling back up and the Tahoe mountains are filling with snow. So it's a good time.
Atmospheric rivers, so I understand, right?
Yep, 2 years in a row, which is really good for the aquifer because the aquifer takes a lot of time to fill back up. So we're happy about that. We should drive by Corey Romero, who's sitting patiently. How's it going, Corey? I know you're in the midst of getting all the experts out and lots of stuff going on. What's new?
Yeah, lots of things, lots of moving parts happening. We've got the vExpert application award announcements happening on February 16th. Also have two other blog posts coming out on that same day for vExpert. So keep an eye on the blogs.vmware.com/vExpert or follow at vExpert on Twitter to keep up with that news. Especially if you're a vExpert and you didn't apply and you didn't make it this year, there's something I got in there in that messaging for you too. So keep an eye on that. So looking forward to releasing that, announcing it. We've got 10 plus sub-programs happening this year, which are going to be great. And we have 2 to 3 program managers per program this year. And so we are going to full throttle, knock it out of the park with these sub-programs. It's been hit and miss the past years, a few of them here and there, as these things were new and, coming in. But we've ironed out processes and policies and various things, and things are looking really great.
Yeah, I would say that the divisions have now assigned people in each division to work with the community teams, to work with the vExpert teams, to work with sub-programs. Like they have gotten the message in the division that you need to engage with community, right? Yeah. This is the first time I've ever seen it, right?
Yeah, I'm excited.
We always used to joke the quickest way to get laid off at VMware was to raise your hand and say, I want to be a full-time community person. Over in the BUs, because if you did, I guarantee you were going to be gone within 8 months. You were going to be gone because you had to do product and community. You just couldn't have a community role, right? They just BUs did not continue the investment in that space. Not now. Now we're seeing full-on engagement, people wanting to engage with VMUG. Gene Williams runs VMUG. We got Brad on the show today. I'm sure he'll confirm some of this. And so we're seeing a lot of community evangelism sub-program activity. So it's good. I got to ask you, Corey, before we get too far away from you, how's the snow shoveling up in Utah?
It's been pretty good the last week and a half. We haven't had much snow at all. A little bit today, but I hear that there's a huge storm coming in. I feel bad for my wife and my son because I leave tonight at 10 p.m. for a flight to California to see my parents for a week. So I'll be in the rain, and my poor wife and son will be dealing with the feet of snow every single day here in Utah.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's a tough one. But you'll come in for a big storm. The storm of the year is coming in on Sunday, so you might get some good weather here. They're talking about 4 feet of snow in Tahoe. So maybe you'll fly back home and pick that up when you get home.
I got to fly home because I got to go clear my driveway.
All right. Well, on the show today, we are going to talk to Brad Thomkins, who's here to talk to us about VMUG and VMUG with Broadcom, VMUG 2024, what's happening. I know Brad this morning did a couple thousand people on a call listening to, where a Broadcom update as well, where VMUG stands. And so we thought we'd have him on the show today. After that, get his impressions. We can all talk about it. I think, Matt, you were probably watching. I know I was watching.
I was.
So we'll get to talk to Brad behind the scenes. Maybe we get a little behind the scenes of what's really happening at VMUG and go from there. So Brad, welcome to the show. As always, we'll ask you to do the 2-minute elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do in the VMware ecosystem?
Sure. Sounds good. Well, thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be on the podcast. My name is Brad Thomkins, and I am the VMUG Executive Director. So that is a global role, and I'm responsible for the VMUGs all across the globe. We've got a team of people that are in offices all over the place, mostly in Nashville and Chicago. We got some in DC and, of course, some other places as well. But our role is for us to manage all the things that are going on with VMUG. That includes UserCons. That includes support for local groups. That includes VMUG Advantage, which is very active and growing, which we enjoy VMUG Advantage. And that's a great program for us and the people that subscribe to that. So it's a lot. It keeps us busy and it keeps us going. But a lot of the work that we get done is through the volunteer leaders out there. And there is 300-400 volunteer leaders out there that really help VMUG. They're the core of VMUG. They're the ones that do the local meetings. They're the ones that are advocates for VMUGs out there. So without those leaders all over the place, VMUG wouldn't be VMUG. So shout out to them and it's just great to be able to represent such a wonderful community. And it's a really honor to be out there forward facing and talking with our members. It's one of the things that I enjoy doing. I was in Texas earlier this week. I'll be back in Texas next week and just talking to members, talking to Broadcom employees, talking to partners. And that's what I'm here for. So it's a lot of fun.
Brad, for me, I think you should put on your resume professional flyer, right?
Yeah.
Along with it, because I have seen you all over the place. You make the effort to get out to the UserCons and engage with all the community members at the same time. So we'll put that on your list of, the guy that weaves it all together and creates a thread between everything. And I mean, I wouldn't want to know how many miles you put on your frequent flyer program, but it's got to be, are you over 1 million? Do you do 1 million a year now?
No. I don't do that much, but I do think it's important for people to get together face to face, where obviously, COVID is long time since passed, but people are still kind of dealing with that. And, if you're not comfortable, that's fine. But when people get together, and I hear it from members, people, especially when people are at UserCons or at local meetings, they're like, man, it's so nice to get face to face with people again. So I would just, encourage people, get back out there, get your pajama pants off, change into another pair of pants, and then, head out to some of these local events, whether it's a VMUG or not, continue to stay plugged into the V community out there. The V Expert program is another great community. We encourage all our members, especially leaders, to apply for that. Explore's coming up. It'll be here before we know it. So whether you're hitting, Vegas or Barcelona, heck, go to both if you can. And so it's great to see people face to face.
Yeah, absolutely is. Absolutely is. So we wanted to talk a little bit about Broadcom. I know you did a live stream this morning where you kind of laid out what's going on with VMUG and Broadcom. So, and you had some nice bullet items. Maybe you should just take us through kind of some high level messaging that you delivered to the community. So, in case people listening to this podcast didn't manage to get on a call this morning, it was 7 a.m. California time. So, maybe all of us sleepyheads didn't make it. I know I did, but why don't you give us the summary of what you talked about, the bullet items, and then we'll hit you up with some questions.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, first of all, VMUG is alive. Well, we are doing good. We're gearing up for 2024. I mentioned VMUG Advantage. That program is very strong. It's continuing on. People have asked me what's going to change, those kind of things. Pretty much is business as usual for VMUG, which is great. Obviously, there were some changes that kind of happened somewhere on the back end when it went from VMware to Broadcom, but I feel like we're past all that now. And now it's just about helping our members get the most out of their VMware and partner solutions. And that's our mission. Like, that is what our mission is. VMUG is an independent organization. We're obviously tightly aligned with Broadcom, but we're an independent org. We're a 501c, and we are managed and directed by a board of 11 people, 10 of those which are end users. They're volunteer end users in companies from SLED to major manufacturing to smaller companies and everywhere in between. Eric is the sole voting board member on the VMUG board. So yes, Broadcom does have representation, but it's 1 out of 11. So this is very much an end user driven organization, and it's going to stay that way. So again, we're independent, tightly aligned, but independent. A lot of people ask, and we covered this on the call, about our revenue. And you hear things like, oh, this is a part of Broadcom. And we heard it when it was VMware. It's a part of VMware. That's not the case. Broadcom represents about 20% of our revenue, annual revenue. And the board looks at that and they monitor that. We don't want that number to get too high, because then you start to lose some of your independence. So I'm not a Broadcom employee. I'm employed by VMUG. And that's the way that works. So 30% comes from Advantage. If you're not familiar with VMUG, VMUG membership is free. VMUG membership is for individuals, and it's for end users, partners, and Broadcom employees. So anybody can join VMUG, and that membership is free. If you choose to upgrade your membership and buy a, yes, I'm going to say it, subscription, you can get a subscription to VMUG Advantage. It's a yearly subscription. It's $210. And that gives you additional perks. Like the two biggest ones is discounts on training and certification, and then eval experience, which gives you the license keys to download VMware products to run in your home lab, not for production. But that is still alive and well. People have asked, is it going away? Is Broadcom going to change that? Nope. All the keys are in there. And we are continuing on with that program. So just want to let everybody know the
I have to also add some color here, right? If you get Advantage, you can go to the VMUG.com library, right? And there's content library now where we have a lot of the recorded sessions and so forth. If you buy the Advantage membership, you don't get any commercials, right? It's live streaming, no commercials, no Brad in there. Just go watch the library content, kind of like Netflix and all. But I think it's Hulu where if you don't buy the membership, then you get commercials. But you get that commercial, and I'm like not only kidding a little bit, but VMUG.com now has a library with all the content there. So I got to do a shout out to that.
Yes, good call.
Yeah. By the way, just like all the premium channels, VMUG runs as a community, and so to get that Advantage membership, not only get the licenses, you get the discounts for training and discounts for Explore, but you also just support VMUG, right? I mean, it's a great thing to participate, get that, that plus membership, because we do a lot of work. We get libraries. We do have libraries. We have live stream. We do have costs, right? So it's great to get that Advantage membership there. It's great for you, but it's also great for VMUG.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a wonderful program for us. It's been going on for, 8-10 years now. So Advantage is 30% of our revenue, and 50% comes from partners. So these are partners in the Broadcom, in the VMware ecosystem. And that's how that's how we're funded. I know a lot of people had some questions around that, but that's the way that works. The important thing is VMUG has always had top-down support from VMware, and we're seeing that with Broadcom. Pat Gelsinger was no stranger to VMUG events. Raghuram was same thing. Like, he attended the events, even up to Explore in Vegas. And we're seeing that and experiencing that with Hock Tan and his team as well. Hock Tan was at a meeting that we had in Barcelona. This was probably 20 days before the $60+ billion deal closed. And he spent time with leaders. He talked to leaders, talked to, individuals, those kind of things. So that has been great to see that's going to continue. VMUG has been in conversation with Broadcom throughout this whole process, probably for, 8-10 months, getting ready for this and that sort of thing. So very strong relationship between Broadcom and VMUG. We enjoyed that when it was VMware. We are seeing that continue with Broadcom. So we're thrilled about that. So I'm very bullish on VMUG and where we're going and the things that we're going to be seeing in the next, not only 2024, but, 25 and 6 and beyond.
I got 2 comments there with that, and then maybe I'll let Matt chime in here. But one comment is, I know, and we weren't allowed to talk about it, but even before the deal closed, you were one of the only executive people that I am aware of that actually got to go meet Hock Tan down in San Jose when they didn't even own us yet. And he was reaching out to you and getting time in with you privately in an office to talk about VMUG and the commitments, right? So you got an opportunity to meet with him well before the deal was even finalized.
Absolutely. And that just goes to show the value that Hock Tan and Broadcom put on the community. It was a meeting. It was 3 of us in that meeting, and we talked about VMUG the entire time. And again, it was just amazing to me. Somebody that's running a business like Broadcom not only sees the value, but then takes an hour out of his day to come, talk to VMUG. That was impressive. And that was months before it closed. So the value is there, and Broadcom understands that value. And I'm excited about where we're going to take this. And some of these things, I don't even know where it's going to be, but I know there's going to be some great opportunities in the months and years to come.
I know. My other second comment is it reminds me of the Tron movie, where in Tron, the users were all powerful, right? Like everybody in the digital world were like, we're lower, and oh my God, you're a user. And Tron was a user. And I get that impression from Broadcom, right? I get the impression that if you're a user, they care. They do care. And some of the reputation of Broadcom with their product pricing and, other acquisitions where they did other things, they definitely have a rep, right? But what I've seen is that when it comes to users and the user groups and the community, they're like, it's like a Tron movie. Oh my God, you're the users. And we get that when we're talking to the divisions and we're talking to all the new executives. They're like, oh yeah, you're the user guys, right? Like, you feel special, like you have some power shield going on. So it is interesting. And I would say that the fact that Hock has made himself so available to you and to us as I consider myself a VMUG user group member. I find it refreshing, actually. No, I think that when Pat took over, it was very similar. If you remember, I don't know, but Paul Moritz was before your days. I think when Paul Moritz showed up, it was not that. We did not get that bear hug. In fact, we got to never use the term virtualization. We're not talking about virtualization anymore, right? And we're like, what? Like what? Why? We didn't know where to go. We're just standing around staring at the wall. We're not sure what to do. This is not the case. Pat took over and we got this bear hug. And I feel like when Broadcom has come in and Hock has come in and the leadership that he's leaving in place for the VMware products, have been told, hey, go engage with the community.
Absolutely. It's tremendous to see the support. And again, it's continuing, and it was said that it would continue, and now we're experiencing it is actually continuing. So that's great. I can't ask for anything more at this moment.
And before Matt jumps in, I will say, proof is always in the pudding, right? Like talk is cheap, right? But, me and you have been working on, SOWs and POs for VMUG. That's my job. Part of my job is to make sure that, everybody gets their funding in place and that we have funding targets. And I think like 75% of all the yearly budget has been already allocated and cut, right? So not only do they say it, Hock had approved some of these POs are pretty big, right? Hock has approved them, right? Like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I've heard him reject other things. So not only do they talk the talk, they're actually coming through with the funding that we expect. So it's been good.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself. It's again, money is where the mouth is, and they're following through. So that's great to see.
Matt, any impressions or questions? I know you attended the session this morning, so I was just wondering what you were thinking.
Yeah, let's crack the egg.
Okay.
So I'm through no stretch of the imagination, a great majority of our VMUG community is made up of small to medium-sized business users and administrators. And during this morning's call, we heard a lot of concerns from those users. And being VMUG members, VMUG leaderships, obviously some passions came out and some concerns. At the same time, this is much like we're changing the day of the week that we're doing a podcast. This situation is very much in flux. So, Brad, I will tee that up over to you, sir, to say, what is your advice for those users and administrators that are out there running a one-man or, dare I say, one-person shop that has, those 3 to 6 hosts that are concerned about their pricing, or, hey, we don't use vSAN, or we don't have an implementation or a need for NSX if we're going to go down the whole VCF path? So rather than, I would say, as we're seeing a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there through online forums and just some analogous things for renewals and whatnot, from the community standpoint, what is your advice to those SMB admins that have a great deal of concern right now, as we saw in this morning's meeting?
I can sum that up easy. Be patient. I think you just need to be patient. Wait until all the information comes out. We know that partners are going to be getting their letters and understanding what's going on Feb 5. So that's a big date. A lot of SMB, maybe even all of them, are buying through partners because that's just the way it was with VMware. That'll continue with Broadcom. 44% of VMUG members are SMB. So this is something that's very important to VMUG. I mean, that's a lot of our members. So my advice is be patient. Make sure you understand everything before you look at other alternatives if you decide to go down that road. And look, VMUG, again, we're an independent organization. I love VMware, been using VMware for a long time, sort of built my career on that as well, just like many VMUG members. And at the end of the day, you got to make a business decision. So if what is being presented to you doesn't work, then yeah, you're going to have to find alternatives. But I would just be wary about those alternatives out there because it's tough to beat vSphere. I mean, it has dominated the market and it has a lot of features that people are using, and you need those features. So make sure that feature parity is there if you're looking to do anything else. From a money perspective, yes. I mean, from what I'm hearing, your spend for VMware is going to go up, and that is just a fact. So understand what that means. Everybody has budgets. Budget seems to be getting tighter and tighter. You're always being asked to do more with less. So instead of just saying, oh, my vSphere license has tripled, look at what that package is and see if there's anything else in that package that's presented to you can be used to maybe reduce costs elsewhere, maybe make you run more efficiently. Maybe you don't have to hire that second person if you're in SMB because now the software is, automated more, or, everything's all in one platform or fewer platforms or those kind of things. So, change is hard. I get it. Change is hard. This is going to force change on a lot of people. And that's just the fact of the matter. Money is going to be involved in this. And for some of you, it's going to be more money. So you got to sit down, evaluate everything, look at it as clearly as you can, and then make the best decision for your career and your company.
Yeah, Matt, I want to take a stab at this too, because I have a slightly different perspective, right? Because I've worked in SMB. I worked in a SMB for several years as an administrator, running a small data center. And the only thing I would say is, and we run some of our own instances, and buddies of mine have small companies that they run on it. And what I would say is, okay, you used to spend $1,200 for a vSphere license for whatever the standard enterprise cheap version is, right? And based on my guesstimate, maybe that will now require you to buy a VVF, is it? Which is not as expensive as VVC, right? VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware Cloud VCF. It's not as expensive as VCF, but it is going to be more because you're going to get NSX, you're going to get ARIA, you're going to get vSAN, right? Maybe you're going to pay 4,000 instead, maybe 5,000 instead of 1,200, right? But then you got to ask yourself, how much training do I get for my career, right? Like if I can actually implement virtual storage and virtual networking, guess what? You're going to make 20 grand more a year as an administrator. Your salary, if you learn that skill set, now maybe you have some convincing to do to convince your management to, stick with VMware and, get a VCF license, right? Which is going to cost $5,000 more, whatever it's going to cost. But from a career perspective, if you get to go implement, because now you've purchased it and you've convinced your management to purchase it, you're going to learn virtual networking. You're going to learn virtual storage. You're going to have time and you're going to build that because you've got the licensing. That's good for your career, right? So yes, somebody's going to pay some extra for that solution, but you're going to level up to a base level that I think over time, everybody will need to get to anyway. Even if you're a small SMB environment, you're going to need to eventually implement that stuff. And so this is kind of one of these things that you'll pay some now, but long term, I think it'll 10x what it is worth for you doing it. So that's my take. And I think that Broadcom and Hawk particularly knows this. I've heard him say it. Like, we're going to level everybody up. Instead of just sitting and learning this, we're going to require you to learn a modern day infrastructure because modern day infrastructure does virtual storage, does virtual networking. If you think you're going to be running in the land of not a full digital virtual environment over the next 10 years, I think you're wrong, right? And you're hiding and you're going to be wishing that you had upskilled at some point. Not only that, but if everybody goes to VCF, then there's going to be a lot more jobs out there that require networking and storage, right? So the whole thing is leveling up. And when you level up, there's some costs involved with it, but once you get there, everybody's leveled up. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if I'm right or not, but that's my 2 cents.
To crib a line from a former CEO of mine, the desire for gain is sometimes less than the fear of change, right? So people are sometimes very much stuck in their ways of not wanting to, we have no need for vSAN. We have a storage array. Well, where's that storage array on your refresh cycle? Is there other security concerns that are true business drivers from a compliance standpoint that your particular vertical needs that NSX would enable, that you may be purchasing other tools? And of course, to come full circle on this is the time that the community was built for in many ways. How are the other operators in this space tackling these challenges, whether it's from learning or implementation or even just doing cost analysis? Lots of similar environments that are out there on the SMB scale, limited budgets and whatnot. And to have that group of peers to collaborate in these times of change and challenge, I can't think of a better group to be associated with. So rather than, let's say, running away and looking at other alternatives, maybe this is time to embrace that change and reach out to those other fellow community members that you already have access to see how they're handling this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's well said. That's exactly what VMUG is here for. And, obviously we need people to be using VMware products to have a VMware user group. If everybody went away tomorrow, then VMUG probably doesn't exist anymore. Now we know that's not going to happen. So where's the value that VMUG can bring? And it's that. I mean, I remember some of my early VMUG days where the meetings were about, look, we know you're going to P2V this thing. When you call up support, don't tell them it's virtualized because they're going to tell you to, stick it on its own server. And it's like, how did you get around that? How does it work? Maybe this hardware wasn't supported, but we made it work. How do you do? What driver do you need? It's not going to be quite like that, but I do think it's hey, I'm an SMB. Now I have VVF. Can somebody help me out with vSAN? Or I want to automate some things with ARIA. Now that I have it, can somebody help me out with that? Make my life a little bit easier so I can focus on my SMB's business doing better through IT and not just keeping IT going and keeping up with all the blocking and tackling, automate what you can. So tons of opportunities there for you, but it is going to require change. It's going to require effort, and it's going to require extra money from your company.
Yeah, look at Aria. That's a really good point, right? Like all of us are sitting around doing PowerShell. Why do, Aria does management, you can script management under Aria, right? They've got a whole, API for it. Why don't people spend time learning that and doing that? Well, because a lot of times they don't have the license, right? They just haven't taken that step. But once you get in, it's amazing. It's mouse click, boom, and it's way easier than running PowerShell scripts, right? It does a really good job, but it requires you to buy that license. It requires you to take that next step. And if you don't take that next step, you're still shell programming, right? And in the end, not that many people shell program. Makefiles went away. GitHub is the future, right? Like there's technology changes that we kind of grab onto and hold on to because this is the way we've done it. And then there's reasons, and no one wants to spend more money, so you never take that leap. Once you take that leap, you end up adopting new ways. So I think it is one of those moments where VMUG can help people get through that.
Absolutely. And we're looking for members out there that have gone through the process. And this is such a new process. There's not that many out there. But I did talk with a VMUG member. He's like, hey, I just moved to VVF, and here's why it was great for me. And it was a little bit less expensive. He got more functionality, those kind of things. That's not going to be everybody's experience. I get it. But we do want to have those stories. And I encourage you out there, once you start going through this process, share those at your VMUG. We would love to have a presentation and have you come, fly to a couple cities and do a UserCon. But if you're not quite there, that's okay. Just talk about it at the round table that you're at. Or if you're, at a restaurant, just, talk to your peers about that, because that's going to be key to help everybody navigate through this. And that's what VMUG is here for, sharing our stories on how we get from point A to point B, whether it's technology, whether it's licensing, regardless of what it is, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I would say even if you're just talking about it at a VMUG chapter meeting, you can record yourself. Go to Zoom, open up a Zoom, and just do a little talk, and then you can upload it to the library, right? That's what the library is for as well. So you can get this information out, share it to everybody, right? And it's relatively easy to do. So like that. I wanted to, maybe pull up the other door number 3 for the other elephant in the room, or crack the egg. And Brad, you did a pretty good job. EUC, right? You got to ask about EUC and what's going to happen. And I think you did a pretty nice job talking about VMUG and EUC and the partner tie-in. So maybe you should just do that narrative again, because I thought that was really good the way you handled that.
Yeah. So for folks that might not be aware, Broadcom has made it clear that they are going to divest EUC. So that entire product line is going to go somewhere else. Where it's going to go, I don't know. But what I do know is wherever it goes, VMUG is going to reach out to those new owners and say, hey, we're VMUG. You need to be a part of VMUG. We want your content. We've got your users, and hopefully still keep that content at VMUGs. And this also includes Advantage. I'm not expecting any changes to Advantage, but there will be some when Broadcom sells EUC. We've got those Horizon SKUs in Advantage. So, we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen with that. Of course, we're going to ask to keep those SKUs. We'll see with whoever the new company is, if that's possible or not. But at that point, the EUC division is going to be approached just like we approach our other partners. I mentioned 50% of our revenue comes from partners, and that's a lot of partners, maybe, 200-300 different partners that contribute to all of this. EUC will be another one of those partners in our ecosystem that we'll reach out to and say, hey, we want your content at our virtual events, at our local meetings, at our UserCons, et cetera, et cetera. We'll do the same thing with Carbon Black as well. I'm a Carbon Black user. I've got it running on my laptop right now. And so we'll do the same thing with that. So just because they're not under the Broadcom umbrella anymore, we can still engage them just like we do many, many, many other partners out there as well. So looking forward to see where that lands and, what's going to happen with that. A lot of people ask me questions about, so when EUC leaves, a lot of things on Horizon are run on ESX. What's going to happen with that? And there was an article I read where Broadcom was stating, like, look, we realized that VMware products, when EUC goes, there's still going to be a lot of VMware products that are associated with that EUC environment So they're being very picky about who is going to buy it. So I think that's good news. Is if you're an EUC user, it's not necessarily just going to go to the highest bidder or anything like that. They need and want to find a good home for EUC, because at the end of the day, my guess is every one of those EUC customers are still going to be VMware/Broadcom customers when it's all said and done. And, we need to make sure that everybody's taken care of. So that's what's going to happen from an EUC perspective.
I thought that was a great way to talk about that. I know the EUC people are going to move into the campus on the lower portion by Creekside in Palo Alto. So I don't think, even if they get bought, I have a feeling they're going to still all be working, a walk away. So, and to your point, I think they care about who they sell it to. And I think they're trying to sell it to someone that is in a position to compete better in the end user computing space, right? I think Broadcom considers themselves wholly focused on data center, only data center back-end plumbing and the front-end desktop stuff, although a lot of it runs obviously in the data center. They are also looking at who could manage the cloud service. Azure now is all cloud service, desktop cloud, Google Cloud. There's a lot of desktop cloud stuff that maybe one of those cloud vendors is in a better position to keep the product set competitive, which then helps vSphere backend or VMware products backend. And so finding a stronger partner, right, to your point, Brad, find a stronger partner that can go to war, go to head against the Microsofts of the world, who are still competing very, very strongly in the cloud desktop kind of space, right? So I think it's an opportunity. Matt, I think you are in the EUC group, right? So
I am. So I have to be very tactile of what I share in a public forum.
Yeah, and I don't want you to share anything. I was just going to make a comment that as soon as you get sold off, you're no persona non grata here. You can't. Yeah, you're done. We don't want you back on the podcast.
Well, at least I know where I stand.
One of those EUC guys from that other company. We wouldn't want to have Matt back.
Matt, you're always welcome at a VMUG. So we got your back, brother.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
At least one of us is on board with this new concept.
That's my tongue in cheek. My point. I don't think you're going to go away just because you end up at a different company, unless, of course, that company says don't ever talk to Eric Nielsen again because we hate him. But I can't imagine that we're still going to spend time together.
I would say that, in my opinion, as we take an application-centric approach to end-user computing, the idea that we offer desktops and published applications that put administrators in a position to offer those services in a hyperscaler or hypervisor neutral stance, the more competitive that our end user computing platform is. And the easier that we integrate those services, i.e., you could see large global organizations that would offer desktop services not only on-prem, but delivered from such services as Azure Virtual Desktop or Amazon Workspace's Core or another hyperscaler's offering, and that we could do that seamlessly based on where the business has chosen to place their applications, all the better. So without saying too much of the future roadmap, I think that the key to a successful end user computing organization and platform is one that allows, again, desktops are great, but desktops are the thing that gets us to the thing. To borrow a great line from *Halt and Catch Fire*, if you haven't seen the series, go and watch it now this weekend. Binge The Thing. It's fantastic.
Brad, I got to say, this does bring up a point, which is, we've been focused on the VMware divisions, and we go, oh, they're selling off. But, you probably we need to get you in front of the EUC people, because we want to lock them into budget spend as well, right? Like they just because they're being sold off doesn't mean their business is not there for the taking.
Oh, trust me, we're talking to EUC. Many of y'all know Holly Lehman. We're talking to her on a regular basis and trying to see. We've got a EUC day coming up, so working with them on that. So absolutely, like that. I mean, really, there could be a scenario where that relationship that we have currently with the EUC folks, Matt, you being one of them, you know, one day it is what it is. It's great. The next day, it's the same thing. It's just a different label instead of Broadcom on the EUC side. And we're just continuing on, again, business as usual, because we do want that content. Absolutely want that content.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, that was good. You know, a lot of people on the session this morning, you know, were, you know, throwing out lots of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of things that you couldn't get at, right? I mean, there is some stuff that are just out of your control. I thought you did a really nice job talking about.
Right, you control SKUs and pricing for all
exactly.
don't you?
Please don't get that rumor started. No, it was a lively, spirited chat, and we had over 1,900 people attend.
Wow. Somebody asked me that. How many people were there?
1,900.
Like it was over 1,000. It seemed like it's never seen chat go by that fast.
Oh my gosh, it was insane. We had over 3,300 people register, 1,900 show up. So yes, I've got actually all the chats printed out, and I'm going to read through everything. I answered as many questions as I could. We ran out of time, but there was a lot of stuff coming at me at that, you know, in the chat and those kind of things. So wasn't trying to ignore the chat. It was just too much. It was overload. I couldn't handle it. We'll digest it.
I did talk to Michael Roy afterward because we had a VCF meeting, and I would say that Michael thought that it was good you had all that because this was a place to vent, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you have a party and everybody comes together and, you know, they just vent and they gossip and you're just getting it out, right? And you're talking to other people and, you know, eventually you calm down or you listen to everybody and then maybe you form a different opinion later when you've had some time to think about it. So I think that was a healthy thing to do because user groups and community is about expressing their thoughts and venting and, you know, sharing frustrations and sharing happiness. And I tell people the definition of happiness is the delta between the worst of times and the best of times. And if you just always have best of times, you're not going to be very happy. You have to have these worst of times where we're engaged with one another in friendship and community. You know, there are some hard times and there are amazing times. And if you have a difference, that's true happiness, right? And so I felt like this was one of those meetings that served its purpose of letting people, you know, talk to one another when things were challenging, right, for them.
Yeah, and VMUG's an open community. Obviously, we're VMUG, right? The VM stands for VMware and VMware User Group. So that's what we're going to be focused around. But, you know, conversations like in the chat, the amount that I've read so far, you know, they're like, hey, we're looking for alternatives doing this. And that's fine conversations to have. Obviously, I want you to still stick with VMware because then you'll continue to be a VMUG member. But, you know, this is business. Everything's fair game to discuss. And we want VMUG to be a place where you can, you know, have those discussions with your peers.
And Matt was very diplomatic. I will be less diplomatic and say that I always get myself in trouble on these things because I say things that I'm not supposed to talk about yet. But what I would say is that I know that we're doing product briefings with you in the coming weeks, right? So the partner stuff all got announced today, tomorrow. You did a great job talking about how partners are being notified already. And me and you have worked on getting that messaging out and working with the leadership at VMware or at Broadcom to make sure VMUG got briefed on partners. The next step of this is the product briefings. And we haven't done product briefings yet. We're waiting. They're not ready yet, apparently. So we have not been briefed on the end-all product models, right? And I think it's still being decided. As soon as we get that, then, you know, we'll have those conversations as well. And I'm sure it won't be as dark and as bad as everybody thought. The partners, we heard rumors that they were only going to deal with 200 partners and all partners are going to be. And Brad, you came in and articulated the great partner story. Maybe you should just cover that right now, just the little 2 sentences on partners, because I know a lot of people that might be listening to this are wondering where their favorite partner is going to end up.
Yeah, so we did a partner town hall on Monday that obviously was just for partners. And we touched a little bit on the town hall, the general member town hall we had earlier today. But Look, Broadcom has got the information out there. You can go to broadcom.com/VMware. You can download the FAQ. And I have got that around here somewhere, but I could just go from memory on this one. But February 5th is when the new program starts. And they said in the FAQ that business as usual up until February 4th, and then it's going to switch over to February 5th. So your partner should be able to get you information on upgrades and those kind of things. You know, candidly, I'm hearing some places that's not the case, but I'm telling you it should be per this Broadcom fax. So if you need help with that, you can reach out to me, reach out to VMUG. The other thing that's important to note about that is they said that they're going to be inviting active partners back to the program. So you're going to get invited back. And they define active as, and this is Broadcom, is if you've done business in the past 24 months. So if I'm an end user and I bought from my partner X 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 18 months ago, and you want to continue to buy from them, well, they're going to get invited back because you're the one that's got the contract that kind of kept them eligible. I'm sure they have other contracts as well. So I'm not anticipating any big change on that because I believe anybody that's really doing anything in the VMware ecosystem, they will get invited back. Now, look, VMware had thousands and thousands of partners. There's probably some in there that weren't doing much anyway, and they probably need to just, go on about their way and do whatever they're going to do. So I don't think this is a bad move. I don't think it's going to affect many of the VMUG members because, again, they've been buying software. They've been buying it from somewhere. So that's going to kind of enable them to continue buying from familiar places. That being said, now's always a good time to look around at other partners as well. Who knows how these partners' relationships are going to change and, who's going to have different options for you and including to not just the licensing, but the support on the back end too, because that's something that partners are going to play a big part in.
And what I had heard was that because of the transition, all partner contracts had to be rewritten on Broadcom paper. So everyone needed to go through this process, whether you were an active partner and an inactive partner, everybody had to re-up their paperwork, re-sign. It's a new ink, and you had to have a contract with your new ink because you're doing business with them. You're buying product and getting commissions and all that. So they needed to take everybody through this, and they were working on it. And then this February 4th and February 5th. So this wasn't really driven by Broadcom wants to radically change how they're working with partners. This was just, we need to switch everybody to new partners. And then they're just basically saying, oh, no, by the way, if you haven't done any business with VMware in the last couple of years, you're going to have to come talk to us and convince us why you're going to do future business, because we don't want to have our roles full of inactive partners, right? And that's completely fair. So I think that was the right thing. And, it just took a month or so to get through, and that issue should go away. My guess is, Matt, we're coming up the top of the hour. So I'll let you, if you got anything else you want to talk to Brad about, I'll let you take the time.
Brad, let's talk about UserCons, right? We talk about business as usual. So what do we have coming up as far as the UserCon schedule? Are those still on track? What's out there? What can we expect for the spring?
Great question, Matt. Thank you. So yes, UserCons are rolling. We are getting ready to kick them off. Traditionally, we don't do many UserCons in January, February by design. Kind of let everybody get over the holidays and get back in the swing of things. So March 14th is the Florida UserCon. That's going to be in Orlando. March 19th is St. Louis. I'll be at the St. Louis UserCon. So if you want to talk to me, you are more than welcome to come by to that one. Philadelphia is March 26th. The Dutch UserCon is March 26th. I'll be at the Dutch UserCon as well. A little fun fact here, that is the largest UserCon in the world, and it's held that title for many, many years. Not all years, but the majority of the years for sure. And then kind of rounding out, Wisconsin is April 4th. Denver is April 18th. Germany is April 25th. May on, just go to the website, vmug.com. They're all posted out there. We do about 26 of these across the globe. A handful, 6, 8 of them are in Europe. The rest of them are in North America. So it's a great event. They're free to attend. The one exception is the Netherlands one. Most of them are free to attend. It's a day event. It's kind of like a mini Explore, if you will, put into a day. And I can tell you that, like for Florida, for example, it's Amanda Blevins is going to be keynoting. So many of y'all know Amanda from her VMware CTO days. So she is going to be keynoting that one. St. Louis is going to have Chris McCain keynoting. If you've never heard Chris McCain speak, he's fantastic. He's a double VCDX, and he's going to be talking.
Chris, give a presentation that will change your life. I don't say that lightly. The man has a gift for presentations.
Absolutely. So my point in bringing that up, these are high quality, high caliber keynotes that we have. And then, of course, we've got breakout sessions. We're going to have vendors there as well. So it's a lot of fun. So definitely check them out if you've got one in your area. Local meetings are continuing to happen as well. All this can be found at vmug.com. If you're not a member, join. Membership is free. You can go sign up for to be a VMUG member, and you'll get asked, hey, where are you located? So you can say, hey, for instance, I'm in Nashville. So I put I'm in Nashville, and then I'll get information about the local Nashville meetings that happen for you to get plugged into. So that's the best way to find information on UserCons, and everything else is vmug.com.
I have one final question for the both of you. Will the name remain the same? Is there anything out there to say that we're looking at maybe shifting away from VMUG, or will the acronym stay as is to acknowledge the history and the user base?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I get that question a lot too. And VMUG is here to stay. We are not changing our name. We're going to continue to be VMUG. VMware is not going away. Obviously, the company has. They're all Broadcom employees now, but the software is still there. So under the Broadcom umbrella, VMware is a piece of it. It's a large piece of it. And so VMUG is going to stay VMUG. So I like to say, keep those stickers on your laptop. No need to rip them off. VMUG is here, and the name, the logo, everything like that is going to be the same. And we're happy about that.
Fantastic.
I'm super happy too, because you said both of us, so I'll say the same thing. Although to me, I kind of felt like Bug would have been a really fun name, Broadcom Music Group, but I don't think we're ever going to go there. So VMs is where we're at. So virtual machines.
Only Eric would say that on the podcast.
What Broadcom Music Group? What?
No, I get it. Bug. I get it. It's hilarious.
The idea for the logos at all.
That's
the beauty of the humor here. We've got to laugh sometimes too, right?
That's right.
It's good. We're at the top of the hour. We got 5 minutes left, and we do stream on youtube.com/vbarbecue, BARBECUE. And Matt, since you're back, we do have to talk a little bit about a barbecue, because the podcast group pulled ourselves together and got you a Christmas present, a smoker. How's it going? What's the report?
I have to say thank you very much to the podcast community as a whole for the Traeger that happened to show up right before Christmas.
Big money.
I am not using right now currently my outdoor gas-fired oven, as Eric would like to say it, also known as my Weber, nearly as much as I have with the Traeger. Now, I've tried a multitude of items, of smoked goods out on the Traeger. Chicken being the easiest. I'd have to recommend from someone that's a novice at the whole entire smoking idea that just good old plain chicken breasts, as opposed to going the whole entire, let's say, brisket route, was much simpler. Okay. And I did try brisket. I tried a brisket over New Year's weekend. And through 18 plus hours of fun and joy, I will say that there is a lot to be learned outside of the actual smoking process, such as, which rubs are you going to use? Trimmings, right? If you're buying a whole brisket from a Costco or a Sam's Club or whatnot, to trim that down, there's quite a bit of an art form as far as trimming and whatnot. And if you go down the YouTube rabbit hole that is brisket or ribs or anything that have to do with smoking, you can easily get into a deep, dark hole. So go enjoy it. Don't be a scaredy cat like I was for years to try the whole entire complementary thing to the outdoor gas-fired oven. It's something that I've come to enjoy and appreciate and use as an and solution. I'm thinking now in the EUC context of sometimes that we sell our solutions. It's an and, not an or, as far as a food delivery and preparation vehicle. to all things outdoor barbecue. So yeah, I absolutely love it. And thank you to everyone that was involved in sharing that miraculous little gift that showed up for Christmas time.
No, we all thought it was worthy of making it happen for you, Matt. And you've worked so hard showing up week after week, and you're on the road sometimes, and you're in your car sometimes. You've just gone over the top to be here. And we talked about Ryan Johnson earlier today in a meeting I was at. And Ryan used to host the podcast, and he lasted like 2 years because as a technical person, you're busy, right? So we appreciate it. We appreciate, you coming on every week after week when you can make it, and then being the co-host. So it's cool. And I would agree with you. It's not like you smoke everything. Smoking is kind of a technique that you use.
It's a zen, right? This isn't something that you're just going to go at Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Hey, I need to fire this thing up and make a meal for 4. No, there's some planning and execution into all of this.
So Matt, I've spent a lot of time back in 2013 to 2017 cooking on my Traeger. And what I did is every time I cooked something, I messed it up the first time, but I took notes on my times, what I used, all of it. So I've got tons and tons of notes, and I have some things I'll share with you. I think I've perfected ribs where you can't get them any better. Now, what is your altitude? What altitude do you live at?
Oh, we're just a little bit over 1,000 feet. So
okay.
it's
right.
not
Yeah,
even
you'll be much better than me.
Yeah.
I'm relearning going from like 20 feet to 6,200 feet. So
that's
I'm
fascinating.
adjusting my times. So I will reach out to you on text, and I will send you some of my latest notes on what's worked best for me with rubs and times and all of it.
I haven't tried ribs yet, Corey. So that's the next thing that I really want to drive into. I can't wait to get some advice from the seasoned professional.
I'll give you my modified 3-2-1. I'm sure you heard of 3-2-1, right? Cook for 3 hours, steam for 2, and then smoke for another 1. For me, that never worked. It wasn't good enough. So I perfected them and adjusted times on every single cook. Tried it, had neighbors try it, wrote down notes, and did it again. I probably cooked 75 to 100 different times with ribs alone.
Wow.
I won I won barbecue competitions where people brought in $50,000 smokers, and I brought in my Costco Traeger.
Nice.
So I'm not trying to brag, just saying I've got some good data that I'll share with you, and anyone else who wants it, reach out to me.
I did 2
If there's not bar graphs and pie charts involved on this, Corey,
All right, I gotta go because I got a hard stop at 1 o'clock. We're at 1. Brad, as always, Thomkins, thanks a lot for being here.
Happy to be here.
People said thanks a lot on the chat here for all the work you do, and we appreciate all the hard work you guys do. And
thank you for your leadership too during these challenging times, Brad.
All
we
those
appreciate
miles,
it.
Absolutely.
all those miles.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoyed it.